now we want to look at the question. Suppose I want to have a set amount of money at an end of a specific period of time. And then, so I would need to figure out how much I need to deposit into the account, and so I could achieve that goal. And so what we do to answer that question, we basically take our annuity formula up here, and we solve it for P sub m. We first multiply both sides by r over n. That gives a times r over n. And then we're going to divide both sides by, that got awful mess there. And we do that, that gives us another formula. So the amount of each payment for annuity, let A be the amount of the annuity after 2 years if the annuity pays an annual interest rate as decimal, compound n times a year. The amount P sub to be deposited at the end of each payment period for an annuity is P sub m equals A times r over n, all divided by the quantity 1 plus r over n raised to the nt minus 1. And so that gives us our second formula under the annuity. So now I've got some goal here. I want to have a certain amount at a period of time. I want to figure out how much I have to deposit per month, or per year, or per week, or per day, or whatever, to achieve that goal. So we're now going to go ahead and take a look at workbook number 3. So this is on page 117. We're looking at problem number 3. So in the next 5 years, the Campbells want to save $30,000 for a down payment for a house. How much must they save per month in an account that pays 7.5% compound monthly? At the end of 5 years, how much of the $30,000 comes from deposits? And how much comes from interest? Okay, so we're going to be writing down the second formula. And so now we don't have the amount that they're putting in per month. We're having just the net result. A here is 30,000. That's what they want to have at the end of 5 years. By R, this is 7.5%, which we're going to write that as 0.075. It's compounded monthly. So N would be 12. And our time here is 5 years. So we just need to go through and plug these numbers into the formula. And then work it out. So the A value here is $30,000. R is 0.75. N is 12. And T here is 5. And now it's just calculator time. So let's slide this over a little bit and bring our calculator in. So I'm going to do my fraction key, 30,000, parentheses, see if I can get some more light on that. Fraction key, 0.075, down arrow, 12, right arrow, close it off. Hit the down arrow key, parentheses, parentheses, 1 plus, fraction key, 0.075 over 12. Close those parentheses off. Caret key, 12 parentheses 5. Remember, make sure you hit the right arrow key and then subtraction 1. And then hit enter. So that becomes $413, and we'll typically round this up, 64 cents per month. Alright, so that's how much they would need to deposit per month. Now I ask us at the end of 5 years, how much of the 30,000 comes from deposits and how much comes from interest. So I'm going to round that off to 413.64. You're making monthly deposits, so times 12, and we're doing this for 5 years. So that gives us $24,818.40. So that's how much comes from the deposits. Slide it over. Sorry about that. And then from interest, it's going to be 30,000 minus that $24,818.40. So just go ahead and do that subtraction on your calculator. And it gives $5,181.60. Alright, so let's go back to our handout and we talk about some other items. So we want to talk about understanding various types of investments. All investments have a level of risk involved. The level of risk is literally the chance that you may lose part of all your investment. Investments have a level of return, meaning how much money can potentially make on your money above the principal. All investments have this tension between risk and return. The higher the risk of losing your money for a particular investment, the more potential return you could receive. Now let's example several types of investments. So the first one is cash investments. Cash investments include money that you deposit into bank accounts. If the bank account is federally insured up to $250,000, then the risk is extremely low and hence the return or interest rate is very low. And we certainly know that in this day and age, interest rates on checking and savings accounts stink. And they've been abnormally low for over a decade. Second type is stocks. Investors can purchase shares of ownership or stock of a company. The number of shares an investor holds compared to the total share indicates the percentage ownership of the company an investor has. So an investor holds 2,000 shares out of 10,000 shares. Then percentage of ownership would be 2,000 divided by 10,000 times 100%, which would be 20%. A shareholder is an investor who owns shares of a company. Shares are bought and sold on a stock exchange or a stock market. Each transaction is referred to as a trade. The price is determined by the supply and demand. If the stock is highly desirable, then the price per share goes up. But if the company is not doing well and many people are selling the stock, then the price per share will go down. And there are two ways the shareholders can make money on stocks. First one is dividends. A company may distribute all or part of their profits to shareholders as dividends. Each share is paid the same amount of dividends. Some companies do not pay dividends. And then capital gain. If a shareholder sells shares of stock for more money than what the shareholder paid for them, then the shareholder will have a capital gain. If the shareholder sells for less money, he or she will have a capital loss. And the amount of risk and return of the stock depends on the company itself. Third type is bonds. In order to raise money, companies sell bonds. People who buy bonds are lending money to the company. Bonds are a commitment by the company to pay the bondholders the principal or face value plus interest payments at a given rate. Bonds are traded like stock, and just like stock, the price is determined by the supply and demand. Government entities will also issue bonds. For instance, the city of San Antonio or a local school district will have bond elections in order to raise money for certain projects. If approved by the voters, then the bonds are issued. The federal government issues bonds to cover the federal deficit. If a company that issued a bond goes bankrupt, the bondholders have first claim to the assets of the company. That means, for the most part, investing in bonds has less risk than investing in stocks, but bonds have a lower return. Type 4 would be mutual funds. A mutual fund is a collection of stocks or bonds managed by a professional investor. When a shareholder buys shares in a mutual fund, the money goes to the fund manager. The money is then combined with the money from other investors and invested in a collection of stocks or bonds in the mutual fund. The idea behind mutual funds is that it minimizes the risk of owning stock in a single company that performs poorly. And then the collection of all investments that an individual holds is called a financial portfolio. Most investors strive to have a mixture of low risk and high risk investments, what's called a diversified portfolio.